This is TalkTV.
Welcome back. In the final part of the show, we will pay a fitting tribute to the late Matthew Perry, who has died, leaving people all over the world utterly bereft. If you comfort watch Friends when you're feeling at your lowest and most wretched, then you will miss him enormously, as indeed we all will. So we're going to be doing that after this segment of the programme. But first of all, we're going to discuss the fact that the government will announce its plans to phase out leasehold homes in the King's Speech next week. Housing Minister Rachel Maclean confirmed through a social media post in which she said the new bill would restore true home ownership to millions of people. The Housing Department estimates there are 5 million leasehold homes in England. 70% of those are flats. The proposed change won't stop flats from being sold as leasehold. And Labour's Shadow Housing Minister Matthew Pennycook described it as thin gruel. What does he mean by that? Well, joining us live is housing campaigner and co-founder of Commonhold Now, Harry Scoffin. Hello, Harry. Thanks a lot for coming.
Hi
Good
there.
to see you.
Thanks for having me.
So this is a change. This is an improvement, you believe, but thin gruel is how it's been described, which doesn't sound very appetising.
Well, Matthew Pennycook is spot on because the government have been promising to reform this fundamentally unfair feudal system that goes back to 1066 for half a decade now. And I've been campaigning for 6 years now on this issue because my mum's affected, but because it represents the housing crisis at its core. You buy a home, it may be a house, it may be a flat, predominantly it will be a flat, and you don't own it and you don't control it. And for my generation, I'm 28 and I live at home, we're never going to be able to afford a freehold house. And the fact is, every other country in the world, Scotland included, they all have fairer systems of flat ownership. When you buy it, you control it, and you're a little bit like Alan Sugar on The Apprentice. And when someone rips you off, you can say you're fired and you bring in the next company. And the fact is that there's lots of money being made from ordinary people's homes up and down the country. And we set up this campaign earlier this year because we felt this wasn't a political story yet. It was always in the back pages of newspapers. We're very thankful for that support, but we got it out there. Earlier this year, it was reported that Govt had been overruled. He wanted to be radical and abolish it. And now we hear this story on Sunday, the reports that actually there has been an agreement with Number 10. But do not be fooled. These reforms do not go anywhere near far enough to help those that are in flats. They're saying they're going to ban leasehold houses. Leasehold houses at one point in 2016 was 15% of all new build houses were sold on a leasehold basis. Clearly a rip-off in the northwest of England. But because of the campaigns for a number of years, we're down to 1% of the housing stock is being built as a new build house on a leasehold basis.
I think lots of people might wonder, Harry, why you're making such a fuss about it. Lots of people will think, OK, you want to buy a flat, you want to buy a house, you're very lucky to be in a position to buy or even think about buying a property in the first place in this day and age. And it's the traditional question, is it freehold or leasehold? And if it turns out to be leasehold, in general, people might think it's a fairly nominal inconvenience. You pay a certain amount to the leaseholder. It's often a peppercorn amount, not a great deal of money, but you get to live in the flat or house. You get to paint the wall whatever colour you want. You get to enjoy the property in all its glory. And the leaseholder gets some peppercorn yearly amount of money for being the leaseholder. They will wonder why you're so anti it and why you think it needs to be abolished and what's so terrible about the current system and why you use the word feudal. I mean, I understand the Doomsday Book and all of that, but in what way is it feudal and what do you mean?
You've basically got a landlord, and these leasehold properties, many of them become debt traps. Yes, the service charge might be quite low at the beginning. Developers will make sure that you try and buy it straight away, and they will lowball that service charge. But within a year or two, it can go up. There's no capping of these charges. And the fact is, these freeholders, and that's a very good point, many years ago, actually, leasehold was a relatively benign, slight annoying thing.
Yeah.
You might have a freeholder that was not interested at all. He would get his little ground rent of a peppercorn or £5 or £10, and he'd leave you alone. The problem is, in the last 15 to 20 years, there's been far more leasehold flats that have been constructed, and there's this aggressive commercialisation of ordinary people's homes. So black banks are even pulling mortgages on these flats because the service charges are going so high. And you know what? You don't need to take it from a campaigner like me. You can speak to people like Hamptons and Zoopla who want to talk up the flats market. And even Hamptons have admitted that the gap between house and flat prices is now at its widest in 30 years. So the fact is, if those service charges go up too high, the value of your investment goes down. you will not be able to then move on in the property ladder. You're stuck. And also, and Hamptons has said, £7.6 billion leaseholders are paying in service charges in flats this year alone. The Financial Conduct Authority has just discovered, after many years of people calling for them to take action, that in the last 3 years alone, leaseholders in flats have been paying over £80 million in insurance kickbacks to these freeholders that are freeloaders, that are ruining people's lives, like my mum's, like people up and down the country.
So I can see you're very emotional. It's very clear that this is really something that's an adverse element in your life and really affecting your ability to enjoy the home in which you live. I get that. You seem very, very upset by it. So in what way does it affect your mum and the house or flat that you live in?
Her service charges have gone up 40% in 2 years. The freeholder is one of Britain's richest men that lives in tax haven. We never meet him. It's not like a landlord, a buy-to-let landlord, where you could meet the guy and have a chat about things that need doing. And the thing about renting is the rental market is an absolute nightmare at the moment. Rent's going through the roof. But you know what? There's a leasehold connection. When service charges go up, you know who gets hit? It's not the buy-to-let landlord. It's a lot of the time the renter, because they put up the rent to protect themselves. And the fact is, what we don't understand is that the government have been looking at this. They've sent officials out to Australia and Singapore, where they have common hold systems. The rest of the world, everywhere else has common hold systems. America, condominium. Italy, condominium. Parts of Europe, cooperative. Strata title in Australia and all these other countries. All we want is that right to be able to control our own homes, because with renting, you may have a bad landlord, but in theory, when you've got lots of rental supply, you can leave a bad landlord behind. The problem with leasehold is that you're tied potentially to these freeholder landlords, and if the service charge is so high, you're lucky to even get the flat sold at auction. And this isn't about me. This isn't about my mum. When you speak to people like Jenny, we've been doing these videos going up and down the country, first-time buyers, but also retirees. Successive governments have been saying you need to downsize. You've got too many bedrooms. The kids have left. They move into these retirement flats, and it's a milking parlour. The service charge is through the roof. I met Rosemary in Bolton. She's worried that she will not be able to carry on living in the flat because she doesn't control the insurance, which has gone up through the roof. And you know what? We're not against service charges and maintaining buildings. What we're against are these middlemen that are there taking their fee. And if we don't pay, this is the worst thing. The whole home can be taken off you. And you don't get any balancing payment. It's not like mortgage foreclosure.
I mean, it's definitely a subject that doesn't get very much airtime. So I think there'll be people on the length and breadth of the country thanking you for giving it the attention that they feel it deserves. I appreciate you coming in. Thank you very much for your passion. Hope it gets sorted out. Coming up after the break, a tragic loss. Family and friends are heartbroken at the loss of Friends actor Matthew Perry. I'm Vanessa Feltz, and you're with Talk on TV, radio, online, and on your smart speaker.